another MVP level performance.
Well, it's not as bad as when I had Soul and Soul in the same game playing against each other. That was a really interesting one.
I mean, there was also Lee playing Lee Sin against Eve playing Eve. That was interesting.
Yeah, there's always some weird crossovers that occur, but straight into pick and ban here on your screen.
You mentioned the word weird, and of course, one of the picks that, at least in the LCK, was pioneered by KT was that Zilean. Fly was the first Zilean master, showing that you can have a lot of lane control, play that champion more aggressively than we expected, flash in for double bomb stuns. And then Faker picked it up, and also by the time playoffs came around was very proficient on it. So we're banning the pocket picks, and the Zilean, very much a KT-specific ban.
Yeah. The rest of these, though, are going to be pretty consistent. Rise, taken away by KT. It's going to be Trundle to follow from MVP. Still a very powerful flex pick for that support or top lane role. But Caitlyn taken away from Maha in the bot lane.
And look, taking comfort away from a player who did struggle specifically in that promotion match, Maha had a lot of issues. It felt like the team almost won in spite of him rather than really anchored by his performances. He was definitely the one held down the most. Now taking some comfort away. Caitlyn is really surprising to see as a ban if you're a new viewer to this season, because of course Caitlyn almost saw no play in spring, a couple of games at most. We've seen a lot of it this week. It's very much back in the meta, and an AD carry ban against Maha makes a degree of sense.
Yeah, but Lucian, the prime pick for AD carries at the moment, does go through, so it's going to be the first pick here for MVP. Final bans from either side. Nothing too shocking. It's going to be the Kindred and the Nidalee following suit. So we're pretty much back to the spot where our junglers are probably going to be Elise and, you know, that Rek'Sai coming out in this match. We'll have to see as they continue in through the draft right now. KT playing around with the idea of this Maokai. Interestingly enough, we do have the Echo available. Have to see if that gets picked up.
I mean, a lot has made it through the draft. Victor is now once again a staple of the mid lane. Fly was defaulting to that before those Victor nerfs came through.
I mean, we saw Crown blowing people up left and right just yesterday with the Victor, so definitely a champion that would want to be prioritized here by any team, really, especially for Fly.
But maybe you don't have to reach for it first. Someday has always been synonymous with the Maokai. This is by far his highest win rate champion, and next to his most played, next to the Renekton, of course, that he was famous for at the start of his career. They're not going to lock it in just yet. They will go for the aforementioned Rek'Sai. Score, when he debuted in the jungle role in spring season last year, one of his first staples was the Rek'Sai, because this guy can play an excellent control jungle. And of course, he spent a whole season playing AD carries in the jungle, which, given his previous role, made a lot of sense. But it's going to be fun to see him return to a champion like Rek'Sai, because when this guy is on form, he runs the early game for KT and is often the linchpin and the quarterback for setting up their early games. They've always been a strong late game team, but it feels like Score needs to get ahead for the early game to run as planned for KT Rolster.
I mean, that was just basically how everything went. If Score got ahead, then KT typically won the game in last split, so have to agree with you there. So
someday Korea is 23-6, 79, 80% almost win rate on the Maokai. So they can get it. They'll probably reach for it, but MVP is certainly considering taking it away. Yeah, locked in.
And they do. And Braum to go with Illusion in the bot side. So we'll see what KT wants to do with this newfound information, what they want to grab up for the top lane, because Echo available, but Echo into Maokai, not really the matchup you want to aim for. So what do you think they're going to go for in this current meta to go up against a giant tree?
There's a lot of choices. It's probably going to end up being a farm lane. Poppy, of course, is available. Echo is fine. You don't have any kill pressure, but you do apply lane pressure, which can be enough to make up for the lanes. They've got amazing wave clear if they do go for Sivir, Echo, Victor. You cannot ask for more line wave clear. Okay. So now the question is, what do they commit for? The final bit is only going to be support. So this is very much going to be... It just feels like a draft where if you had one less lane decided, it'd be about having a hyper carry somewhere, but instead it's just going to be super high pressure, and then the Rek'Sai also being able to push forward and get even more vision. So really liking the pressure draft from KT. And that's a Lucian and a Twitch locked in for MVP. So is this going to be some mid lane Lucian?
It looks like it might be. I mean, it would have to be, because you don't want to put your Twitch in the mid lane, but that is... interesting.
I've spent the best part of a year talking about how strong I believe mid lane Lucian to be. Now, of course, it could be mid lane Twitch, but let's be real. That's probably not going to be happening. It's going to be our first champion sighting of Taric. Not quite release rework Taric, which was very over the top, but Taric's still very strong. You hear the crowd being excited, because in Korea, there's the big meme that Korean caster Dongjun looks a lot like Taric. But
he sort of does. I don't entirely see it, but I sort of see it.
So the only player I've seen actually play around with mid lane Lucian in competitive, there was Dade and Pawn many moons ago on release Lucian, but in 2015, in spring season, Xiaohu, then on Gamti, of course now famous for his performances for Royal Never Give Up, loved this mid lane Lucian. You have a lot of lane presence. Of course, he has lane presence in the 2v2 lane. Now when he gets those levels, he gets the extra levels in the culling, you can go for that same 2-item build, which suits a lot of mid lanes. Remember, mid lane usually spikes around 2 items. Youmuu's Ghostblade, Black Cleaver, and also having those extra levels, say level 11 and both those items early in the game, you will rip through team fights. So this is really interesting to see, and it's nice to see Ian go away from his original identity as kind of a safe farm laner into something that's just very different.
But playing this in the mid lane, do you think that this Lucian is still going to be built the same way that we've been seeing
Definitely.
here? It's still just going to be the Black Cleaver with Youmuu's Ghostblade as the first item?
It's just so powerful, and you want early power spikes from your mid lane if you're going to go mid lane Lucian.
My only worry is that if the Victor can, lay down enough harass, you might be forced into a Hex Drinker, which is going to delay your ultimate power spike.
We'll see how pressured he feels, not against a magic damage jungler, but really interesting to see and really interesting to track, and it's something different from MVP. Get the Black Cleaver, shred the armor. You got Twitch coming through with that spray and pray. The damage could be massive. So MVP already throwing a curveball. It's what we asked for. It's what we're getting. And what a great start to Champions, because we've had so many off-meta and new meta picks in just a couple of days' play.
I mean, especially yesterday was the biggest curveballs of all with Rock Tigers in there.
Well, they curved so much that they just got a bit confused. They spano around.
They went right back into their starting point.
And lost. So
yeah, it was a little bit bizarre.
Just to let you guys know that the match has started with a pause, so we're probably going to wait a little bit before we get into game.
Yeah, we'll get this taken care of and get right into the action and see what is going to be happening between these two teams. Both mid laners taking exhaust, so really showing respect to each other's damage. And we've seen how much damage both of these champions with this Victor and this Lucian have been able to show. But going up against each other in the same lane is going to be certainly a very interesting matchup to see. I mean, how is early pressure going to happen here, Papa?
You kind of have to have trouble kind of conceptualizing how you look, because we haven't said Lucian versus Victor, I believe, ever in competitive play. I didn't remember casting that for Gamti, so I don't know if it's ever really happened. If you think about it, AD carry, specifically Lucian, has great ability to push the wave. He gets the harass with the piercing light, and just as a ranged auto attacker with something like a Doran Blade start, you can auto attack the minion wave and push it faster than a Victor pre-Hex Core. Of course, when he gets his first Hex Core upgrade, you get that death ray, you get level 7, he's still able to one-shot the backline, so that's when the lane pressure starts to equalize a bit. But if Lucian ever wants to leave lane, you just pop the ultimate, you push up the creeps fast, then you can roam. So lane pressure advantage, specifically early, almost certainly going to be in the advantage of Lucian. It's just after a couple of items, going to be a bit equalized, and when the piercing light can no longer one-shot the minion wave or close thereabouts, Victor will finally get a pushing advantage, probably about 20 minutes into the game.
Okay. Now, how do you, just taking a look at both of these team compositions, how do you think that they fare just on paper outside of execution? Because we do have a Taric coming in for the first time, so we haven't seen this being played around in LCK. We don't really know what to expect, but we do know the kit of this champion, double stun potential there on a fairly squishy, 2 carries there with that Lucian, with that Twitch. I feel like if they get caught, they're just going to go like that. How do you think this interaction is going to happen, though?
Well, I feel bad that we don't have the champions on the screen, but just looking over the roster, just echoing what it is. Echo in the top lane. Well, I said echoing Echo, but regardless. Echo in the top lane, we mentioned Victor and Sivir. So this, especially with one AD item on the Sivir, is a lineup that can apply a lot of pressure, and they have Rek'Sai to give them that tremor sense vision. So the big story, the first thing you thought of when you saw Taric's new ultimate, the invulnerability, you thought, okay, Taric dives with this guy are going to be crazy. When you have 3 lanes that can push up, that basically have instant push option, your Taric dives can be insane. So I expect to see Rek'Sai play around the duo lane, especially post level 6, and then just staying under the turret as a Twitch especially, one of the weakest 2v2 laners, will be a struggle. So I feel like pressure-wise, play around the turret, play around your strength in the jungle and your control jungle matchup, and try and just keep the Twitch honest. Because if we get to late game and Twitch can open up after all those Black Cleaver stacks are applied, the late game with Twitch, Lucian, and Maokai can be really explosive. It doesn't necessarily mean that MVP have a massive advantage in the late game. They kind of have to get through even or ahead to pull it off. But it's pretty tenuous, and it's exciting because there's a lot of unknown variables in this game, and whether KT can play that pressure game that they could in fits and spurts in summer or not remains to be seen again.
That it does. My main concern for MVP throwing this curveball is the same thing with Rocks Tigers yesterday. We saw Samsung, they had very heavy AoE CC chaining that they could do, and they pulled it off so well. KT have the same thing. You have parallel convergence, you have the knockup from the Rek'Sai, gravity field, on top of the Taric with a double stun potential. I just feel like if KT can get the execution, it almost doesn't matter this lineup unless they get wildly, like thousands and thousands of gold ahead early. I just feel like they're just going to crumble underneath of that if KT can pull it off.
I mean, the one thing you can say is that, if we remember the Rocks Tigers game yesterday where they had the Ezreal, Swain, Aurelion Sol, they couldn't get through the front line and struggled, right?
Yeah.
The difference here is that Twitch doesn't care about front lines. He has the pass-through damage with the ultimate that can get towards the back line. So if you open up correctly, you can actually pull off these comps in the late game and not necessarily be as affected by those big tank front lines. Randuin's Omen still has a lot of anti-synergy against the Twitch because you do slow that attack speed, but you do have options in the late game, and you don't have the Ezreal who naturally gets all his damage blocked by a frontline tank. So there is more options available. Is it still difficult to pull off for a new challenger team re-debuting in Champions? Absolutely, but I feel like it's not quite the sustained damage and Ezreal that was always invariably going to be stopped by a frontline tank wall, like we saw yesterday.
Okay. And with, Caitlyn ban came out, do you think that this would have been a pick that they would have gone for off the bat? I mean, because this is an interesting composition that MVP decided to piece together. Do you think that Caitlyn kind of threw a wrench in maybe their first plans and they decided, like, oh, we need to shuffle this around and go for something a little bit more wacky? Like, or do you think that they're just, like, not even going to prioritize that?
It's hard to read, right? You never know if this was a pivot or if this was the plan all along. Yeah. Was this a champion that he was just playing a lot in solo queues, looking over his records? He has been playing the Caitlyn. Was it a reaction to scrims? We don't have the full answer to that. I like what they've put together. It's just kind of the crux of the issue is that Maha has to lane this Twitch, and he has to find a way to get through laning phase. If they can get the lane swap off, get 2 turrets down, get some guaranteed gold, get through the first couple of levels where Twitch especially struggles, maybe you can put it together, but he struggled in the promotion. If they do see 2v2 laning play, and you've already opted in to, say, this Twitch laning matchup, I think he might struggle. So getting through that early game is certainly no guarantee for the MVP lineup.
Okay.
And that's about all we can talk about the comps, because we've still got the break here, unfortunately, guys.
Yeah, it looks like the admins are scrambling in the booth at the moment trying to fix the issue. Looks like we have an issue with ADD's computer, from what I can gather. So, might have to do a PC swap, Papa. So
PC swap.
Yeah, you never know. These guys do it quick. So it's like watching like a race, like a NASCAR race or something, and then they pull into the pit stop, and also they just like take apart all the tires and shove the new ones back on and stuff.
Is that actually like just one of your prepared metaphors, or do you actually watch NASCAR races?
I don't. I actually hate NASCAR
I was going to make sure. I was going to make sure, because you talked about a NASCAR race.
It made me think about it is all.
I'm sorry about that. I'm sure there's NASCAR fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, no offense. Nothing against you.
If I'm going to watch some open wheel racing, Formula 1, back in the days when everyone crashed on the first corner, I could get into that.
Yeah, that's a little bit more interesting.
Not a motorsport purist, unfortunately.
I mean, going in a left turn 500 times.
I like how you're motioning a circle but didn't say circle.
Well, I mean, it's one whole. Sure, a circle. Going in a circle.
An oval, probably.
Going in an oval to the left 500 times is not something that I find very interesting. But then again, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that don't find 15-minute lane swap.
That's true.
Very entertaining as well.
The viewers probably don't know, but the cost of punishment if you make a big gaffe on stream, like if you swear or something, is to have to walk around in a circle 500 times. Like that's actually
all the way around the studio.
Privilege. No, it's actually just in one spot, so you just end up invariably just falling over. It's quite comical for everyone watching. There's shame associated with it. It's not just the actual physical exertion.
Okay. So, I mean...
it's a big shame culture here at OGN.
Well, is that what happened to the Rocks Tigers then? Because they basically did the same thing.
Well, I'd hope so. I mean, NoFa's known to be a pretty cruel taskmaster, so I don't know what their punishment is going to be. But, I mean, I felt like if you looked at the players, some of them looked, the Rocks Tigers famous for smiling and getting over losses.
But even
Smeb looked pretty...
He looked pretty distraught.
He obviously has high expectations for himself.
And he should. I mean, he's touted as being the best top laner in the world, especially after the last split. But looks like we are finally out of the pause. We're going to get into game one here. KT versus MVP. All right, here we are on the Rift. As said before, KT fans coming out tenfold here over that of MVP. New team, though. Need to build up. I mean, not a new team, but new into the LCK. Need to build up that fan base.
I mean, if you're being fair, it's worth noting that if you remember last season's intros, they would have stars next to each organization for how many champions they've won.
Yeah.
MVP would not have one. Samsung is the direct lineage of the original MVP League of Legends squad. So for all intents and purposes, it's definitely a famous name in Korean esports, a famous name in champions, but this is effectively a new start for MVP. So a bit of inexperience on the Rift and in the fan squad is understandable.
Some of those playoff stars were a little bit misleading.
Kongdu Monster had a star,
Monster
of course.
having a playoff star.
Actually, now that you mention it, this is
shocking.
the first season where there isn't a direct lineage for every org as Stun opens up.
Yeah, it's going to be Hachani and Arrow going in a little bit of invasive action.
Yeah, but just to finish that point, because Kongdu Monster inherited the Najin win because they took that spot, they're now in the Challenger circuit, so not reflected in Champions. One down, but still plenty of SKT wins to talk about, I guess.
There's no shortage on those. They have completed the circle. They have gathered all of the gems for the Infinity Gauntlet. Faker has everything. Just needs another, just why not a 3P world win?
Well, you'd be a bold man not to at least have that as heavy favorite this part of the season. We haven't seen SKT on the latest patch, but they'll get there. They always do.
Question is, how are some of the other regions going to fare, especially after we saw MSI? Meanwhile, in the bot lane, though, Hachani taking a little bit of damage, but Maha's going to eat some as well from Arrow, so they just exchange blows. But yeah, I mean, North American hopes finally coming to fruition a little bit there with CLG's second place performance.
I mean, their sales should be swelling. CLG looked very impressive. There's a lot of optimism around there beyond bot lane.
Oh, that's going to be a double flash here from Hachani and Arrow. Nice pressure, just walking up, and the threat of the Cocoon enough to get both of those summoner spells down. So you can be damn sure that Beyond is going to revisit that bot lane. Meanwhile, up top, Someday taking a hell of a lot of damage. We'll get that shield from the parallel convergence, but really has to respect ADD. Does he go for the flash? No, he's just going to go ahead.
3 seconds left on the Twisted Advance.
Yeah, knew that he would get way too close to the tower if he wanted to go for that play, so just deciding to back off. Someday will keep a summoner flash at the moment, but has to recall. We'll use that teleport to get back.
Talked about the wraparound gank. We're starting seeing it now.
Oh, yes, we are getting in onto Hachani, trying to get those stacks moving. He's taking a hell of a lot of damage. Gets locked up, and he goes down. Maha finding first blood on the Twitch. That's a pretty deadly start here for MVP.
Really like the pathing from Beyond, who have sort of started at the top side, made it down bot for the early gank, the double flash. Remember, that was already a massive thing for MVP. They're in a losing 2v2 lane matchup, even though Siva, not known as a lane dominant champion, Twitch by far and away the weakest of the 2v2 laners. So double flash, already great, but getting the wraparound gank, even though there was a ward, it was so shallow from KT that they didn't have enough time to react, didn't have to use the flash the first time around. And now first blood over to MVP. For the Twitch especially, is a massive thing. And now with Serrated Dirk against just the Dorans,
oh my God.
against just the Dorans from Arrow, trades are actually going to be pretty damn good for the Twitch.
That's going to be really brutal to go up against if you're Sivir, because you can't really spell shield that much. You could get rid of the poison that he's swinging at you, but just the auto attacks alone are going to do a ton of damage. So very nice start. That's going to be a big confidence booster here for MVP to kick things off. Because you have to be nervous coming into, well, I guess you don't have to be, but you're probably nervous coming into your first professional game in the LCK.
Pretty telegraphed roam here from bot lane. You see Elise is already ready.
They're going to go for it, trying to get onto Ian, but the Cocoon comes through, locks up Score, and he's taking a hell of a lot of damage. The exhaust comes off as well. Ian gets exhausted, so he cannot close the gap.
Beyond's gone pretty deep.
Yeah, Beyond going down, but here comes Max. Hachani will finish him off with the Ignite. It's going to be the flash away from Score to get him to safety. All in all, it's going to be a 1-kill pickup onto Beyond for KT. But Summoner's blown on both sides.
Strange to see Beyond go so ham. He was in great positioning. He read the situation well, knew there was going to be that gank into the mid lane. They got a nice burst of damage on Score, but they should have stopped there. Beyond already had his flash down, and he went and took minion aggro with 3 enemy champions around and promptly died. So really not clear what exactly he was reaching for, because the start of it, all very well read by him, is just the overextension is a pretty big cost when it should have been a nice little win in terms of resources for MVP.
Yeah. You can see, though, in this top side, Someday still getting bullied out by ADD. Might have to back off yet again if he loses one more trade like that. He might even lose his life. Doesn't have level 6 quite just yet.
You can see Arrow struggling for CS against MVP.
Down.
When you got that advantage, it's such a big trading advantage with the serrated Derp. There's just KT have to hold back.
Cole longsword, so you know that Arrow is not looking to fight anytime soon. Just wants to sit back and soak up as much of this CS as he possibly can, but Maha's not going to give him an easy time with this. He's just continually pushing forward, getting those auto attacks in, and just trying to whittle him down as best as possible. It does have the heal there from the Taric, of course, to help with the sustain, but you only have so much mana, so eventually Hachani is going to run out.
So I want to see MVP play towards their item builds. They're going for, as predicted, the double Youmuu's Ghost Blade between mid lane and bot lane. So once those Youmuu's are completed, which should be, 8-10 minutes time from now, there's just no way for KT to opt into Dragon Fights against what is such an immense early amount of stats that you get from popping that Youmuu's. So MVP, with the control they have, with the snowball they have, should really be looking to fight for objectives because there's no natural item builds from KT to answer just how clean the first buys are going to be for MVP.
So with this Lucian in the mid lane, now if other teams are going to start picking this up, what could we expect to be going up against this champion? Who do you think would be a good neutralizer of this pressure that he's able to apply with this current build?
There's nothing really that sticks out, and it's one of the reasons why I always like the pick, is there's nothing that really crushes Lucian in lane. Unless you want to actually go full counter pick and say take Caitlyn, right? You could take Caitlyn and just outrange him and get 3 autos for every trade and win in that way. But in terms of mages, you can't go for a farming mid laner. Even though Lucian doesn't have a lot of kill pressure, he has good range and he wins trades so hard that you can't go for, say, the Veigar, which often was a champion that you would pick into other matchups if you get away with just farming. So basically, he does well against control mages. He's safe and escapable enough to avoid difficult assassin matchups. So you could go all in and try a Zed, but the downside is if you fail a Zed all in or you get ganked and lose levels, you don't have a lot of ability to enter lane because you're melee. So there's a lot of headaches that Lucian mid really brings in terms of viable champion pool against him.
Very good point. I mean, with the changes to QSS, could make that a little bit more viable than it would have been before. But it's definitely still a very irksome matchup going melee into that. So, oh, this will be interesting to see how the rest of this split is going to develop. I mean, even just, the rest of this week, we still have games tomorrow. We'll get to see.
Let's not look past this series
yet.
yet.
Oh, yeah, no, trust me. I am quite content with this series right now.
Just love that everyone's got a new bag of tricks and no one has the same one. One team's like, no, Swain is the pick. And I actually agree. I think Swain's very powerful, but Rox didn't pull it off in the 5-man unit. But now we see MVP going for the Lucian middle. We've seen every team kind of bring something new, and to some, that's actually been to a detriment. To others, they've really pulled off something different. We saw Eva just early blind picking Ashe and making it work. So it's going to be, the meta will settle at some point, and unfortunately we'll get very much the same picks as we've seen season after season. But right now, everyone's invigorated and everyone's tinkering, which is a fun place to be.
Yeah. That's Loken, though, with that blind pick Ashe. That's the guy that can pull it off. That man is a monster. We can see, though, going in for the engage, they do get the stun onto both people, but Max throws up the shield just in time. And he uses Glacial Fissure, a very nice spell shield from Arrow. Get rid of the knock-up. Looks like they're just going to try to get onto the Braum. Flash forward by Someday. Cannot find the damage, though. The stun not going to connect. Someday going in underneath the tower, taking a hell of a lot of damage. Going to have to use this ultimate to snap back. Now they get on the ADD, who's getting blown up, but he locks Someday up, and he takes another tower shot. It's not going to be enough to finish off the Echo, however. And KT are going to come out on top, getting that Twitch.
Nice play by KT. One issue was they both had pink wards to try and find the Twitch, but they placed them in the same spot, and the Twitch was just able to ambush away. So what they really hoped, given how well the lane ward was set up, they expected a double kill the moment they invested the teleport. You see, Someday was already pinging on that this is where he's going to go for. This should have been a double kill. Twitch is so squishy that if you can turn onto him, there's very little he can do. But just the way that MVP opened up the lane, and unfortunately the pink ward positioning, meant that even with the ability to be Someday, turret dive to your heart's content, and then reset aggro with the ultimate, they only got the 1 kill. Now, it was an even summoner spell usage in terms of teleport, so a kill for no kill is still an advantage to KT. but they will feel like it should have been more.
Yep. Gonna have to work on that pink placement communication, it seems, from the bot lane. See, Someday does have one in his inventory now, whether or not he's gonna use that top or maybe save it for another roam bot. We'll have to find out. Score, though, runs into Beyond up in this top side of the river. He's gonna burrow out to safety. Doesn't want to mess with that Rift Herald quite just yet.
Squall's definitely had a happy farm time. Sort of playstyle you expect on Nidalee, but not so much the Rek'Sai. Standard lanes just hasn't really had a lot of impact. Has a really large neural network, a lot of tunnels on the map, but Score is such a puzzling jungler because when he gets in the enemy's face, you know, very much has a Peanut-esque playstyle sometimes. He can really, with his strong mechanics, come out ahead, but there are other times where, irrespective of the champion, he can be surprisingly passive, and this definitely fits into the latter camp so far.
It would seem that way. We can see those going for those boots of swiftness, so he can zip around the map even faster, maybe start making some kind of pressure plays. Bot lane certainly could use another visitation, as we can see that CS lead still stretching in favor of Arrow, up about 15 at the moment. But all things considered, given how it started off with Twitch getting that first blood, Arrow's holding on pretty decently well.
He's doing fine. I mean, Sivir at the end of the day, once you get enough AD, the moment the enemy AD carry leaves lane, you get a full minion wave. It's very hard to deny her CS for an extended amount of time, so she's doing very capably. We're very close to the double Yomu's Ghostblade early power spike I spoke about. Already see it in the mid lane, and Twitch just looking for the combine.
Happen pretty soon. Score gets caught by the Cocoon, but is able to use the burrow just in time before that would have locked up the interaction. So
yeah, we haven't seen Rek'Sai in a while, but there was always that interaction where if you channel the tunnel first, you do complete it, regardless of if CC effect. Yep. Here we
they're just going to go for this one. Yeah, goes straight onto Maha, taking so much damage, and the Boomerang Blade will finish him off, so Arrow finds the kill, and now Max nowhere to go. The turret offering very little assistance. He is going to go down, and it is a double kill for Arrow in the bot side. Well-executed dive, and that's exactly what you were talking about with that Taric.
It illustrates the point, right? You just look at the ultimate, and it doesn't take much genius to work out exactly one of the strongest ways to play it when you have a very reliable ganking jungle like Rek'Sai, and of course the Taric CC, which is very nicely layered in this particular fight, hit both Max and Maha on that engage. The health bars are still high because you haven't taken any damage from the turret. In the mid lane, you can see the trades are already starting to go towards Ian as expected with the Yomu's build path, but nice and clean play from KT, and it plays towards the comp they picked into, and it's good to see.
Yeah. It was a fairly even trade, though, between Fly and Ian. Fly just very slightly coming out on the
You know what isn't even? The kill distribution, because all three have gone to Sivir in the bot lane, so despite giving away the early death in bot lane from Hachani, we now see nice little bit of gold onto the Sivir.
Yeah, it's going to be swinging back quite nicely. Speaking of Hachani, though, going to walk into this brush and find Beyond, taking a hell of a lot of damage here. Arrow does arrive, trying to fire out as best as he can. Q is not going to connect as Johnny jumps over the wall. Poison's ticking, but it's not going to be enough to finish him off.
Maha did pop the spray and pray, but only got a single tick onto Hachani. This will probably be enough to dissuade KT from fighting around the dragon. The items should do that anyway, but KT are at least going to poke around.
I don't know about this one. It's just the air Drake. Not sure if you really want to fight over this one. Score still playing really far forward. They get the stun on Hachani. Actually, don't even need the stun. They just lock him up and take him down. Going to be the first one to fall now. Ian on the run. Score goes in, gets the pop-up. Ian looking like he's going to fall. Heal comes through, trying to kite back as best as he can. Get some damage in onto Arrow. That's going to allow for Maha to finish him off, but the Twitch is going to go down all the same. Flash away from Max just in time to dodge out the Chaos Storm. They will escape, but it's a 2 for 2, but both carries going down on the side of MVP.
Now we're starting to see some of the cracks in this particular MVP lineup when it comes to the end of this fight. So they get the pick onto Chai, that part's great, but if you notice, the tank line and the mid lane and AD carry, the double AD carries here, are on the same page. Ian goes forward, gets the heal, this part is fine, but Maha is still unable to get out. He needs tanks to be able to peel or at least force some dissuasion, otherwise people are just going to run at the Twitch, and with the fleet of foot passive and the general movement speed abilities KT have, there's nowhere for him to go, but instead, both frontliners kind of hightail out, so either everyone needs to move away, or no one needs to reinitiate, or maybe Ian just had to go and be the sacrificial lamb for the other three, but giving away 2 kills in that scenario was definitely a communication misplay from MVP.
Yeah, not a good look here for MVP. They're rookiness, I guess. I guess you could say, is showing a little bit here as they go up against these veteran players. So we're going pretty aggressive, trying to get in onto this blue buff. The rest of the team now arriving to try to back him up. He goes in, tries to get the stun. Max going to go ahead and throw out the Glacial Fissure, but he's being taken quite low. Ian coming in on the backside, firing onto Arrow around the wall, but it doesn't even matter. He flashes away to safety and will make it out alive. ADD as well having to flash just to get out of that blue buff pit, and all said and done, it's going to be a 2-0 here for KT to their advantage. Now trying to find Maha. Score, of course, can track him with a Tremor passive here as the Rek'Sai. So Maha really nowhere to go, just going to try to get a kill, but it's not going to come through, and that's going to make it a 3-0. KT starting to run away with this game.
But the crazy thing is, look at the scenario where they're running around. They won a fight 3-0 against double Youmuu's Ghostblade, and with their top laner having built no armor. This is a scenario where the power spike should be massive for MVP, but Maokai is late to teleport. They don't have vision in a lot of where this fight occurs. Ian comes in late, and basically the issue here is that Maha and Ian are at the opposite corners of your screen and not getting any free auto attacks off, so their items are really irrelevant. Ian spent a lot of time basically not being able to auto attack because they didn't have a ward over in the blue pit. So in general, they got nothing out of their power spike, and in a power trough, KT go 3-0, which kind of worries you as the game's going to go on.
Yeah, it's looking pretty worrisome, as you said, as we reach about a 4.1 thousand gold lead, just 17 minutes in, 3-9 in kills, and MVP haven't even really been able to scratch a turret quite just yet. Do have that dragon, but again, it's the air drake that's not going to net them a whole lot as they move deeper into this game.
KT had this balanced team comp with strong wave clear. You can really push an advantage well. If you're ever out of position on the map, Sivir pops ultimate, they have instant wave clear, and they punish you with turret damage. So it's hard to execute double AD comp. MVP have made their first couple of missteps. You worry that KT, with their veteran status, are just going to iron it out from here.
Yeah. Certainly looking that way as they continue to just go ahead and pick up these global objectives, so they will claim the Rift Herald. We won't be seeing him ever again in this game, and buff goes over to Score.
I really like the duo of Taric Sivir in team fights especially, because Sivir's famous for always fighting with her tank line. You know, she pops the ult, she gets into close range, wants to cancel auto attacks with her W, and then you have an ability like the Taric ultimate that's so flexible. You can just pop it mid-fight to just stop some damage coming through for a couple of seconds. So it really allows you to super commit. You can all pile on top of each other even, and then fight in close quarters without having to worry about your health bars, which makes a lot of sense with a Sivir comp.
Yeah, it's also just added safety having that spell shield. We've seen that Arrow's been using it quite well, especially blocking that point-blank Glacial Fissure in the bot lane. That first tower dive was pretty good mechanical play coming out. But now the question is, what do you do if you're MVP? Like you said, the power spike, they should have been able to take advantage of that just a couple minutes ago, and they've just been losing at every single turn. What do you do if you're MVP to try to get back into this game?
One thing you've been able to claim is Dragon, so if you can set up around Dragon, you still have those nice early items. Your power is still very much front-loaded in the game, both in kits and item builds. So you're still looking to fight around the next Dragon, try and monopolize an objective, because you don't really have a lot of other win conditions. 5v5 is so reliable from KT that barring a big misplay, it's going to be tough to win one of those 5v5s. And then you've got double ADs, of course. In any other scenario, you'd be like, all right, turret sieging, but your ADs are Lucian and Twitch, both of them short range. Twitch famously very poor at sieging because such an easy champion to flank and has to get into very low range, doesn't have a gap closer to be able to get away, and Lucian with good turret damage still also has to get pretty close. So it feels like fights are kind of their window, especially early, but given they've already lost a fight and the map control's trying to slip away, I don't really have a good answer for you, Achilles.
It's very unfortunate for MVP.
I mean, getting pink wards, forcing picks, getting KT to make a bad decision around the Dragon, these are ways that you can win, but I feel like the impetus is more on KT, misallocating their resources, not having appropriate respect for the enemy or ward coverage, more so than MVP being able to make a proactive play, because, I mean, a Maokai flank teleport's lovely, but you don't really have the wards to be able to pull one off.
See though, 4 members piling into this mid side, someday close by as well.
Which is going to show in bot lane.
Yeah, this could allow for a lot of pressure in onto this mid tower. Of course, Arrow going to be the primary source of damage, but have to walk straight up to that one. So KT just going to think better of it. Decide to back off. Dragon has spawned. It's going to be another Air Drake this time around. So not going to be seeing Ocean, Mountain, or Infernal quite just yet. Down well below half HP to KT Stick here. Do they just back off? Looks like it might be the latter as MVP moves in. They will get the smite away, but they're straight on to ADD here for KT. They're trying to pick up some kills. ADD going low. Looks like he is going to fall. No, big heal comes through, keeping him alive as he does retreat into the back lines. MVP, however, I don't think that they can pursue this any further. Someday goes forward with a parallel convergence. It's not going to land a stun, but he does get that shield, and that's enough for him to go straight in onto Maha. The stun comes through, and they are just sweeping through MVP. 3 members go down, no one dying on the side of KT. That was a massive fight that looked like it was going to end.
They leveraged their health bars so intelligently, really placing the link on Tariq to get that stun onto 3. Gonna have to watch the replay. Just to be clear, I believe it was onto the Echo. It might have been Victor.
I think it was onto the Echo. Hachani, though, gonna go down beyond. Picks up that kill with the Elise, but doesn't have much of anywhere to go. Fly running around, trying to get out of here. He will live in the end.
Dangerous game, Proc. Would have been a couple of HP outside of that, but they get the turret as well. KT piling on advantage after advantage. We'll have to really track who the link was on Tariq. So the Dragon Secure was good there. Actually, Smite didn't come through from score. It was just the earlier Smite into auto attack that took it down. ADD getting that extra health from the Sap Massive packet. Sap Magic passive was massive. That was hard to say. Now wait for the stun coming through. So yeah, the link is just activated onto Someday and then sniped onto 3 members. That was crucial. And that's an interaction that we haven't seen before, but to set up the link between himself and Echo, piled on the CC, great positioning by Someday, and the re-engage, I didn't think it was possible given the health bars, but expertly put together by KT Rolster.
Yeah, that was really well communicated. You have to imagine that a lot of that came from Hachani saying, like, if you go in, we can get the stuns. You know, I can link you, we can make this happen. And they did just that. Hachani trying to live up to that bold claim of being the #1 support in the LCK. And so far, doing a pretty damn good job.
You know, he's the #1 performing Tariq in the LCK so far.
He is. That he is.
He gets that. We'll wait to the end of the season before we give him any crowns, but for now, I've been impressed with KT playing around Tariq. This is not necessarily a champion that's really plug and play into a lot of comps, just because he has those different mechanics, those vector mechanics almost, that other supports just really don't have.
His vector goes good with Victor?
Sure.
It's looking that way. Who is now 207 Riley's Crystal Scepter for the first item.
Yeah, it's a little bit overextended here.
Oh yeah, he has to pop that Yomu's trying to get out of there, but the sun comes through yet again, this time on to score. And look at the HP bars just vanishing before your very eyes. Ian goes down. And that is pretty much the story of the hopes here for MVP in this game so far.
And it actually lets Score on the Rek'Sai have ganking pressure with the link from Tariq when his flash is down. Of course, Rek'Sai famously very flash unburrow reliant for engage, but you saw the link come through late from Hachani, in position to get the stun. They're really good at playing around this champion. And I thought it was going to be Fly debuting one of those edge meta picks. We haven't seen a Tariq yet after the subtle nerfs on this patch, and so far, KT are making me a believer.
That's a very strong way to start the summer split, as KT are known for being victorious there, trying to maintain that. And this time, hopefully for their sake, get a finals win. Not just a visitation, but that's a long ways off still. We have plenty of League of Legends to happen.
I mean, if you're a player and on the first day of the season, they offer you a finals, finals appearance, you take it, right? Whether it's a win or not. So you can have your premonitions about KT get a finals win. I just want to see them play consistent League of Legends, because they've had 1-2 series consistency, and then they'll just randomly play Protect the Draven, or they'll randomly not have pressure in a pressure comp. So it's been all about KT keeping it together in a long season, and that's something they just haven't been able to do so far.
God, you just had to bring up the Protect the Draven. Again, I try to expel this memory from my mind, possability, and you just drag it back in, shake it in front of me, and say, look at it.
You were asking about
this
Lucian.
happened.
You were asking about the Lucian first pick, and I was actually going to bring up the potential Draven counter pick, but
God, no.
We didn't go there when we saw the second round Twitch.
Thank you, KT, for not doing that.
And that, we talk about again about what can MVP do. You got to control jungle like Rek'Sai, putting down Lots of deep wards, remember, has the Sightstone, also has Tremor Sense. There's so little access to camps around the map. The pressure completely one-sided to KT, so the answer, unfortunately for them, continues to be very little, despite the fact that MVP have claimed those 2 dragons. They're not the same sort of win condition, though, it remains to be said. Yeah. 2 dragons against the flow in previous metas would be like, okay, outside chance of working towards 3, 4, and 5.
Maybe we need to start worrying about this, but actually Beyond needs to start worrying about his positioning here. Almost gets caught out by Johnny and Score, but this time they cannot connect the stun. So the Spider will be able to crawl back onto the web for now.
Someday just sticking in base, has some pretty good teleport ward options. So just looking for a home guard in, but for now, unable to find one. Dragon spawns in 40 seconds.
Didn't get a chance to see what it was this time around, so we'll have to take a peek at it when it does spawn. Again, Riot, please implement that on the minimap.
KT just trying to control vision. This is something the comp does so well. The team has also done very well. And with this return to the control jungle meta, that's not confirmed, but very much suggested by the picks recently, KT look pretty adept at something they've always been very good.
I think it was the Ocean Drake. I couldn't really see the wall. We barely clipped
Triple
it.
Ocean?
I'm pretty sure. Well, no, he had 2 airs.
Sorry.
Now we have an Ocean. It is Ocean.
Okay, double air, then Ocean.
Yep. Oh, Someday going aggressive on the 2 members here in the jungle. Finds Max. Maha going to be able to retreat around the other side. Something's still sticking onto this Braum. Doing a hell of a lot of damage, but there's no one there to follow up. But Johnny, meanwhile, gets cocooned. Takes about half of his HP from that culling. Now ADD wants to go deep in, but Someday has other plans for Maha. Glacial Fissure comes out, but it's not enough to keep him alive. He just gets melted. Arrow finds the kill. Someday in pretty deep, gets locked up, is going to go down. That's a kill for ADD, but the Sivir has found 2 for herself. 3 members overall. I think it was actually a triple kill now that I see it. Over to Arrow, now 11, 1, and 5 on this Sivir, and KT are looking to put a nail in this coffin here for MVP as they're knocking on the inhibitor doors.
And it was only Someday being permanently CC'd right at the end of his health bar that stopped him from ulting and being able to live through. We're going to see some more exit kills. KT have a decent lane of minions here, so they're going to try and push forward, but given the fact they didn't get that pick onto Beyond, the game will not end just yet.
Yeah, it was also about 3 seconds on Maha and Max, so just going to show some respect. Like they said, they can win if they don't play crazy. And they are exercising some restraint here, as we can see. And KT, there's no need to go for any sort of flashier, insane plays. We can see, though, this is going to be a bit of a sneaky one coming out from MVP, but they did get spotted.
Yeah, they saw this.
So they know that they're going for this Baron. Someday already arrived, throwing out the parallel convergence. Can't get in for the stun. Actually be a little bit too far forward. Has to use the ultimate immediately, but that's gonna just go ahead and push MVP off.
Yeah, we see individual trades of a single life for stopping a Baron buff, and ultimate certainly is the even better trade from a KT perspective. They're gonna keep chasing.
Match teleports as well, so he doesn't have to worry about getting out TP'd by ADD.
Smart of KT to back away. I like the build coming through from Fly. You mentioned that Rylai's the first item to be completed after the perfect hex score. I outlined it yesterday's game. The perfect hex score is even more important as a rush, just because you want the extra movement speed on the Chaos Storm because the ticks of damage are so much higher than previously. And Rylai's, of course, has the synergy of keeping them slowed in that field. So it's all, again, about those extra ticks of the Chaos Storm really putting forward the damage as the first Ocean Drake goes over to KT.
Yep, which means that the next one that we're going to see will be the Elder
Zero
Drake.
buffs.
And Hachani goes in, finds the stun on the Maha immediately. The crits come through, and Sivir finds another one. Now 12 kills, I believe. Ian, taking a bit of damage, has to retreat back with that Yomu's. Cannot find really any damage to even fire back on KT, let alone a kill. Now they're just going to push straight up into this mid lane where this tower should be made very quick work of. There's a giant wave of super creeps building up at that bottom side. Somebody's going to have to go answer it. Meanwhile, though, ADD gonna go down. Another kill for Arrow. He is just popping off in this game.
The gulf of skill really starting to come between KT and MVP. Really scary, I think, when you see the Sivir turret coming through out of vision super fast, and the instant stun onto the Twitch really wants
to
fight.
They're still hungry. Someday goes straight in on that Max, and they just burn straight through him. That one goes over to Fly. He says, come on, man, you got to give me some of these kills. So picks up his third of the game. Still has not died. 3-0 and 12, and then 13-1 and 5 for Arrow. Both of the carries of this team doing absolute monstrous work, but Got to give a big shout out here to Hachani. He is making all of this work.
This is basically a tutorial video for how to play Taric in competitive play. Every time they have something like a CBLOL or they have someone who can fish for CC, like Score with the Rek'Sai Unburrow, you just go for the turret dive because you're not even worried whatsoever about taking damage. Usually you can't turret dive when there's high damage members and CC next to it because you're worried about someone getting CC'd up and then taking a lot of turret shots. With Taric ultimate, first couple of seconds are negated from all sources, and thus you get the kills, you get out. Echo already disregards turrets anyway given the ultimate, but with a Taric in the back pocket, just has no cares in the world.
Yep. Step 1, pick Taric. Step 2, don't give a damn.
I mean, Taric's still not an auto-win button like he was when the rework first came through. He's still situational, but when that situation comes together, it is a thing of beauty.
This is truly magnificent here. Someday still just applying pressure in this mid side, just letting these super creeps pile up. They have mid and bot. I think KT can just, they're just going to go straight for this Baron. Don't have to worry about too much because somebody has to stick around and clear that bottom wave or they're just going to lose Nexus towers.
MVP just really missed their window. You know, they had that one-item power spike. They were slow on a teleport. They didn't have vision down, and KT got 3 kills. And from there, it's pretty much looked a lot like this.
Yeah, well, Stun's not going to connect, but it might not even matter. Beyond still running out of here, but that's going to be scored straight to the backside. And 2 more quick kills going over to Arrow, looking to make that one a third as he's chasing onto ADD and Ian. Will find it. Can he find a quadra kill? They're locking up the Lucian as best as they can. Someday going to deny any hope of a pentakill. Looking like he's just going to get double. Ian says, you know what? Just take me. I'm done. Falls and says, just get me in the next game. I'm tired of this. It's 5-25. I'm going to call it quits. And just like that, 32 minutes, KT Rolster, the monstrous victory here. 16-1-6 finished scoreline here for Arrow. They take game 1 over MVP.
Yeah, clean stuff from KT. MVP, they tried something different. I'll give them credit for that. This isn't the MVP that we saw in Challenger. They tried to play around some of their weaknesses in lineup. We're just going for something a bit different. And I actually liked some of the things they were doing. The Lucian middle as an isolated pick I liked, but they started to fall behind. Their comp couldn't really siege despite being double AD. They really wanted to team fight, but suddenly we're in a bit of an item trough compared to their opponents despite having that great first item. And when those second items came in fast for KT and no advantages had really piled on for MVP, the result really didn't look like it was in doubt after those first couple of skirmishes.
Yeah, that was just a fantastic victory for these guys and a great way to kick off the summer split. Arrow mentioned in his interview, he said, what team would you like to see? And he said MVP, and now he is very much putting them in the ground.
Well, he wanted to play against his old substitute in Mark, of course. It's now Maha, the AD carrier of MVP, and so far so good from his perspective.
Very good indeed. But I mean, we're giving praise to, this Sivir and this Victor, but Hachani with the Taric, absolutely monstrous performance coming out, landing those stuns, knowing when to link and who to link, and he just played so well. Almost certainly going to see that ban in the next game.
And MVP just didn't have the formation. This is a comp that can do a lot of damage, but when your Twitch is doing less damage than Elise, you probably haven't had the right frontline or the right organization to really get the most out of the comp. It ended up being very one-sided, and we'll have to see if MVP will go back to the drawing board or try something similar, because I think we really need to see some more standard meta picks from them, because the edge of the meta looked a bit precarious.
Even then, communication issues seemingly running rampant throughout the team. That big lost fight down around the Dragon Pit. Certainly a very telling sign for